Hello, hello. Good afternoon. And I hope you all are staying safe. For those of you who don't know, many of you do, I'm Dr. Naisha, and I help doctors create profitable business from what they already know. So, if you have been watching, if you watched yesterday's series, I have said that I told you all that I have had a lot of docs over the last few weeks come to me with their ideas, and they're asking, throughout this time, I'm thinking about doing something different. How do I get out? How do I begin to create a career by my design? How do I create a business outside the box? And so, being that this is what I do, this is my sweet spot, I decided I was going to create a series for the entire month, uh, going through various types of business models that you can start with what you already know, the expertise you already have as a physician or a medical professional. So this week, we are talking about telemedicine. Now, I know that's not so much outside the box, but it is the lowest hanging fruit, given that a lot of docs, that's what existing practices and some docs are wanting to do, just as they move forward into stepping their toe in the water of entrepreneurship. So if you are watching this right now, go ahead and like and share to a colleague that you think this would be helpful. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and like and subscribe. And let's jump right in. So yesterday, we talked about one of the big things you need to consider when starting your telemedicine business is your overall strategy, looking at the big picture and making sure that you create a strategy for exactly what you want to do. That included your why, that included what's the business model, what's the pricing model, all of these types of things, what's the type of patients and conditions. We talked about that in yesterday's video. So if you missed it, you can go back and watch it. But today, what we want to talk about is another very, very important thing that you want to consider on the front end before you start a telemedicine practice is the team, building your team. So those of you who have watched any of my videos have probably heard me talk about this at length. And that is because it is super important to have a good team or supporting staff or supporting cast, however you want to think of it, around you. A lot of times we as doctors, as medical professionals, we want to jump into something. We jump into it full throttle, but we jump into it alone. And when you are starting a business like this, even though it's telemedicine, even though it seems like, oh, all I need is, some tech setup and to know the laws, and I could just get started, which we're going to talk a little bit about that in the coming days, the tech setup and knowing, and then actually marketing it. We'll talk about that in the next couple of days. It's important before then to set yourself up for success. And how you do that is to make sure you have a proper team around you. So, as you figure out your purpose and your goals for the practice, you want to know what kind of team that you're going to need to help you to smoothly implement the process. So, for example, we talked about the various practice models. If you have a hybrid practice, brick and mortar practice, and you have this telemedicine practice together, you likely have in-house staff. How can you then incorporate your front office staff, your back office clinical staff to help and support you in not only maintaining but growing the practice itself? Sending out notifications to your existing patients, or doing follow-up calls, helping you with charting, helping you set up templates in your EHR, right? So those are some of the things that I can think of off the top of my head, but there are many more. Helping to get people referred to the proper channels if you're doing a 100% telemedicine practice, if you're transitioning to that, and then you need to refer out. If you are working in a 100% telemedicine practice model, then who are the supporting staff that you need there? Maybe you need a virtual assistant or a virtual medical assistant who you can train up to support you in dealing with some of the back end clinical things. Maybe you need a virtual administrative person to help you on the front end with scheduling. You may have an automated scheduling system, but what if you need to move some patients around, or something gets canceled, or a patient calls in for questions beforehand? You need a excuse me, front end administrative person, and then you need maybe a back end clinical person, and they could be cross trained. And in the beginning, you may only need one cross trained person to help you if you're 100% virtual. But the point is, the point is that you want to, let me give me a drink of water here, y'all. The point is that you want to, based on your goals, based on the strategy that you have set up, you want to make sure that you choose your supporting staff accordingly. Okay. If you are doing an insurance model, then you want to have a good biller in place. If you are, it's just, you want to make sure that everybody has their respective accountabilities and they're clear on their accountabilities. Now, the other thing I like to do with my virtual staff, because basically right now all of my staff is virtual, is I like to cross-train everyone. So maybe you have billing staff that's cross-trained for appointment setting, and vice versa. Maybe you have front office staff that's cross-trained to do some back-end clinical things. It's actually very wise, especially when you're virtual, to have your staff cross-trained. So if one person has to go out and their main accountability is this, you have backup. You don't have to be scrambling to, once again, try to jump in there and do it yourself. Now, is it valuable to be able to know how to do all of this stuff yourself? Of course it is. However, in order to be able to effectively grow a practice like this, you and focus on what you need to be focused on, which may be giving the care, which is probably delivering the care itself. You want to have that great support staff. So who are the people that you need based on the goals that you have? What are their respective accountabilities? And as you build the team, you want to make sure that you're very clear about their accountabilities. Now, I have mostly to this point been talking about your in-office or clinical staff, but there may be some other team members that you need to help to actually get this off the ground. And those are more from an entrepreneurial standpoint. So you might need someone, a web designer, someone to help you build out your web page and connect all of the back end things, connect your scheduler to your website, connect, some of the things that you need to your website. So a web designer is actually a good person to have in your pocket. You might need access to an attorney, so you can an attorney or legal services, so that you can help they can help you put together necessary contracts or agreements to negotiate, to make sure that you're compliant with the laws. You also, especially when you're starting a business, want to have an accountant on your team. All right, so those are some of the things that are non-clinical related, that are good foundational team members to have in the beginning. Okay, so once again, you want to make sure that you have a great supporting staff when you are starting your telemedicine practice, building your telemedicine practice. And that includes both the in-office or the clinical and clinically related staff. And it also includes the entrepreneurial or the business related staff. Now, there obviously are more parts of this story. There are more team members that you can add on. And I cover a lot of that in my masterminds and in my one-on-one coaching, because I always like to tailor it to what you're doing. It's hard to, it's can be challenging to do a panacea of diagnosis based on, something with this short of a time span. So what I want to know is, what are your takeaways from today's live, with today's lesson, and what actions are you taking currently, both from day one, which is your overview, your goals, your models, and then how are you building your staff to fit those goals, those models, the strategy, the pricing strategy, and such. And what questions do you have about building your team today? Okay, so I want you to stay tuned, because tomorrow we're going to delve into the third thing, which is tech setup. So what is the tech that you need in the beginning to start your telemedicine practice? And of course, if you are super serious about starting your business, starting a telemedicine practice or any other practice or business of that kind as a physician or medical professional, then you can always schedule a free strategy session with me. And you can do that by going to drmaisha.com/meet me, drmaisha.com/meet me. So again, tell me your takeaways, give me your takeaways, give me your questions. I will be manning the comments. And I will see you tomorrow when we talk about telemedicine and tech. Have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the week. Namaste.